Okay, let's talk a little bit about discovery generation. So discovery generation, I found out, I was yesterday old when I found out about this, are basically people who consume and purchase stuff online, whether it's stuff or it's content, without really knowing what they want. So they browse. There's no open time, right? They can browse at 7 p.m., they can browse at 7 a.m., they can browse at 3 a.m., no time at all, no time slot. Zero loyalty to brands. They just want what's cheap, what's fast, what's convenient, something they believe in, not much brand loyalty. And we can dive a little bit into this, and there are a lot of business owners here as well, and I know you guys are trying to capture this market, this discovery generation market, and we're going to talk a little bit about how video plays a really huge and increasingly huge role. In fact, even Azran's presentation earlier on, there was a video. Video plays a huge role in today's content marketing age. So let's start off with anyone can answer this. But based on the discovery generation, in terms of the importance of video, right? Where do you think it stands? Like, how do you see it going? The importance of the other side of Michael, you hold the mic already, right? For yourself, for example, how do you see? So you do a lot of films. You're on the acting side. You're in front of the lens. You're behind the lens. How do you see the importance of video changing for you?
Importance of video changing. I think before I try weigh in on a question like that, it's a quite heavy question, I feel. Although on the surface of it feels very light. I think among the three people here in the panel, you probably don't recognize me the most because these two are more out there in the world, right? So to understand my perspective on how I would contribute to a question like that, I give you a little bit inside my background, right? I started out as an actor, still act once in a while, but I realized I couldn't pay the bills and I was going to get married, so I went into advertising, of course, right? And I focused on digital. And although my background in video was more traditional, I wanted to understand how the TV industry worked, how the movie industry worked, more from an actor's perspective, because I wanted to be that non-annoying actor on set. That was my whole point of joining production when I was very young, when I graduated from law and wanted to go into acting. My parents weren't exactly very pleased. But that was my lens, right? And then when I went into advertising, I worked with Rachel for a very long time under Ernest Ng, and I started a video department there. And it was because I felt that the role of video in advertising, it was changing, right? And a lot. The traditional TV commercial wasn't working as well. Everyone wanted to go to digital, and I was around during Web 2.0, right? So it gives you a little idea of how old I am. So I felt that when I started really focusing on digital video advertising to be part of the entire advertising machine, this was around 2010, 2012, 2013. A lot of companies and corporates, like Azran mentioned, were doing things the way they always did things, right? So when I want to answer a question like the role of video and whether it's changing or not, right? I don't think, in essence, traditionally video has changed. At the end of the day, it comes down to telling a good story, quality content, and the discovery generation, in that sense, where there's no loyalty. I think that's a half-false statement. I think what it means is that people want to watch and consume good things. And a good thing will be different for all four of us standing here and for everyone else of us in this room. All of us have different definition of what is good. And some of us will change our minds on what is good as we go along, right? So it's very important to understand what sort of content, if you're looking at a brand perspective, right? What sort of content that brand wants to represent. Because if you like X type of content, and there's X amount of people in the world, the X amount of people will follow, So I don't think to answer that question, I hope I'm answering it, is that I don't think the role of video has ever changed. It's just that your strategy, your thinking of it, it's not always about trying to hit everyone at the same time. It's about coming out with content consistently to hit the demographic that you want, and whether you then have the back end to, show for it. If you show content about social responsibility all the time, but then your company langsung don't practice any social responsibility, then what's the point, That's my 2 cents.
Are you?
So what's the question again?
Because, we go to the next question, but basically for yourself, so you've just basically created videos since day one.
Yeah.
starting from YouTube channels, and how do you see video content changing?
Yeah,
I guess is the question.
So I feel like, so we've been doing this for about 9 years now, and I think content it's so scary at how much options and variety you have. We talk about like platforms like Netflix, iFlix, and the amount of platforms there are for content to be dispersed is incredible, and everyone wants to capitalize on that, right? Everyone wants to be like, oh, I want to be heard, I want to be number one video in everything, make me a viral video, and I laugh when people say that, But that being said, so I really feel like with so much noise, and I mean, you take for example Chinese New Year. Right, Chinese New Year, every brand wants to have their Chinese New Year video out, and everyone tries to outdo the other, right? Everyone wants to be Reservoir Productions, makes a big video and like, oh, this guy did that. But realistically, as consumers, right, and I think there's something as business owners and advertisers we need to be really truthful about. Nobody cares about your campaign. Like really, nobody cares about your campaign. Even the Burger King's recent, the Whopper burger that was like disintegrating, right? Everyone was like, oh, this is stroke of genius. But really, I don't care. If I went to Burger King or McDonald's and you told me that, oh, this noble idea is causing change around the world, that's great. But if I see spicy chicken McNuggets, I'm probably going to get that. Because that's what matters to me, right? And I think that we shouldn't tell ourselves lies when it comes to stuff like that. And that's shooting myself in the foot because I'm a content creator, right? But I feel like realistically, like what Mike said, is that there is so much noise, there's so much content out there, and what people really, really want is something that resonates with them. And as a brand, whether brand big or small, if you are unable to, tell your story and make people care about why they should want to check out your brand, if you fail to do that, whatever you do in the future will not work. And so that's why I think old agencies and your big agencies, they do like ATL stuff and traditional media buying and stuff like that. It works, and they know that platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, right? And everyone wants to jump on it. But realistically, if your brand message doesn't get across, and even if it does, don't feel bad that people just don't like your brand. Like Coke or Pepsi, which one you guys like more? Pepsi people can't be like, oh man, they don't like my stuff. I'm sorry, you just deal with it, dude. But that's the realistic side of it, and I feel like with videos, and I think just with content in general, what you put out, what your brand represents, helps people understand your brand more. So whether it's through a 15-second video, whether it's through a short film, whether it's through a full-length feature film, right? Once I understand what this brand is, what they stand for, what they want me to feel, I'll feel a lot more connected from them, yeah.
Ernest. So Ernest runs like this webcomic, which is always timely, always commenting on social issues, and I really, really enjoy his comics. If you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. So for yourself, for example, I mean, not only are you doing webcomics, but you're also doing videos and whatnot. So I'm gonna open up the question a little bit more. So for yourself, in terms of being on the pulse, how do you feel video content changing in that sense?
I actually don't know like how video is changing. Because most of the time when I create content, it's based on what I see as you go along. So if you want to talk about changing, change is always happening. So to a point that because I create content, that I don't really see this change. I just go with the flow. So each time when something happens, like I create content, right? So if something happens with the novel coronavirus, I just draw something about it. And then something happens with a political scene, that I draw something about it. I just go with the flow only. So I don't really have to like overanalyze a lot of things. I just see like, okay, this is happening right now. I need to make fun of this shit. And I just come up with it now. And within the next 48 hours, something like that. Yeah. So in terms of change, I don't know, personally I just don't really see it. Just go with the flow. If you want to create something that resonates with people, go something, what was everyone talking about at that moment? Just go for it,
So the only reason why I'm asking is because I think for a lot of brand owners, being constantly creative, so brand owners obviously they want to tap this market because they want people to respond to the brand, they want people to buy, it's going to translate to sales at the end of the day. So, and as you've done a couple of like brand videos before, right?
Yeah.
How do you balance between what they want, which is usually a hard sell, and being true to your audience, or being able to convert basically?
Does
that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Basically what happens is that, okay, if a client wants a video or a comic, the first question I always ask is it going to be on my platform or is it going to be on your platform? Like if you are representing the brand comes to you and say, oh, we want it on our channel. Okay, then we just do what your channel direction is, what your USP, what your campaign objectives are. So that one we can follow more, it can be more hard sell in that sense because that's what they want. But I say, oh no, we want it. If on the other hand, if they say we really want it on your channel because you know your audience the best, then I would say that you have to let me come up with something that resonates with my audience because I know my audience the best. So sometimes it can get a bit iffy because some clients they don't see that somehow they just still say no, I still need you to talk more about the pizza. If you know what I mean. You still need to talk about the pizza. I said no one cares about the pizza. People want to laugh. People want to see because people want to see you make fun of the other brands. Go for it.
Funny enough, it actually translates to more brand awareness.
Yes, correct, right? So that's what they need to accept. If they want you, they have to follow what you're good at. They cannot just. You're not like how to say. You're not like a billboard. Like, I'm just gonna plaster something there. Cannot. It's basically the things that Ming talk about, the things Michael talk about. We're all different from the things that we believe in are different. So it has to like match on what we believe in. And when we pushed it out, even your audience can tell one if you're being too hard sell, then no heart, not genuinely. So people will just like hard sell. But if you can marry that two things together, people will resonate better with your content.
Right. This question is for Ming Yue. In terms of let's say, so you've started a couple of different shows. I mean, it's always a constant challenge to be creative, right? It becomes a job after a while. It becomes a job, then you stop being creative, and it's this endless cycle. So you've actually, because if you look at your earlier videos, it's got a lot of stories, a lot of heart and stuff. But now it's moving more towards a vlog style. So how has that changed for you? Out of curiosity.
So when we started off YouTube in this region in particular, I think everyone was looking to the West, right? Because West is best. People like Wong Fu, Ryan Higa and stuff like that. So that was a lot of inspiration where we took from. And of course we had stories that we wanted to tell. And I think along with a bunch of English YouTubers at the time, we told our stories that was true to like Malaysian childhood, growing up in Malaysia, things that we experienced and stuff like that. And from there we had to experiment with, because nobody had like a film background, we had to just try it out, right? And I think along the years we realized that as we grew older, everything had a shelf life. And realistically, even YouTube content. So that had to change as well because as people only want to watch short films like maybe a week 6 times. On the 7th time they're like, I want something else already. And that's why you see like platforms like Instagram coming up with the 1 minute video thing with stories, and TikTok is not such a big thing now. I still can't wrap my head around it, but I love it. And there's so much demand for shorter content. Something brainless, something that's heartfelt. It swings from both spectrums. And for us at what we do, so we have a YouTube channel called The Ming Thing, and we do a bunch of stuff on it. And now Ming Han, who happens to be also my co-founder, because we're brothers. He's like, you know what? Let's try something different. Let's go back to vlogs. So vlogs are being on the main channel. We still got our short films and sketches, but we've also started up a brand new platform called the Takeaway Table. And this is we're doing podcasts on it. Lifestyle topics where we just sit down and talk about things that people don't really talk about. So there's a show called A-Man where 3 boys are talking about like grooming, cutting their own pubes and nose hair, like how do you get ready for a first date? And nobody talks about these things, and stuff like that has reached out and then gotten a very interesting fan base because people tell me, oh, I really needed this. I was going to go on a date next week and I completely forgot to cut my nose hair. So like you have stories of people resonating in small ways like this. But I really think because there's so much variety and YouTube is like, there's no barrier of entry, right? YouTube, in creating content, nobody is telling you when you sign up with your email account, you have to have 4 years of holding a camera experience before you do it. Like nobody's doing that, right? So that's why there is so much diversity in terms of content. You have like some of my favorite creators in Malaysia, like Lukman Podolski, this Malay dude who makes 15-second Instagram videos that kill me every time. They're so ridiculous, He just cries in front of the camera. I'm like, what's happening, So there's so much variety, and I think that because there's so much you cannot say that one audience only wants one of this. Because even for me, the best way to think about it, on your Spotify Discover list, your genre is not just jazz. you are listening to pop rock, modern jazz, classical, K-pop, J-pop, stuff like that. And so like everyone's a hybrid audience now. And I think that if businesses and brands and even content creators, if we fail to acknowledge that, if we say, no, I'm only doing this because this is the only thing that's going to work, what our amazing speaker was saying just now, if that's the only way you operate, you're going to cease to operate. But also, if you're good at something, keep doing it. Nobody else is going to be good as you, so yeah.
Very interesting. I've got another question for you, but we'll go to Michael first. Michael, so you've done a lot more films, off late. I think we've been caught up in a long while. You've done a couple of films. So in terms of the film industry, how does it? So in Malaysia, there's this background story that how you make money in Malaysian film is you get sponsors on the board, and then how do you deal with? Have you ever had to deal with that? Like having sponsor stuff on the film, it's ridiculous now. It's like a big long ad, right? But have you had to deal with things like that, or that's not been an issue? I know I'm like really zooming into it now, but I'm so curious.
Wow, that feels like a really big question again. So, yes, basically my background is from theatre, and then I went into indie filmmaking back in the days when YouTube wasn't big yet. So the strategy, if some of you are old enough to remember, for Malaysian filmmakers to get really recognized, you make an indie film, super low budget, masuk like international film festivals, small ones, big ones, get as many flowers as you can, then come back and say, look at all the flowers that I got. And then people will buy tickets to your cinema. If you remember those times, yeah, that was where I was from. So try to answer that question, did I have problems getting money to make the independent films that I made? Officially, I can only lay claim to one independent film that I brought from zero to hero all the way to the cinemas. I didn't lose money, yay, but completely bombed in the box office, didn't make much at all. And I went through exactly those problems, how to get funding and all that, right? So the idea was that I had an investor who believed in my vision. The film was basically an experimental film where 5 very different filmmakers with very, very different genre styles got together to tell one movie. Not an omnibus film, where it's 5 short films and then, under one theme. It's 5 filmmakers talking about one story, and the story was basically about a Malay guy getting married to a Chinese girl, and on his akad nikah, something like Chip San Leong, right? He remembers all the things he had to go through to get married to this girl. So each director then talked about different aspects of that journey. So we jump back and forth from one story to another. So it's very experimental, the film, and the investor was willing to give me money for it. I gave it to the filmmakers, gave them almost 100% creative freedom. But because of my background as an actor, and I went into writing and I went into producing as well, I really was heavily involved with every director. And I would know, like Ming Yue said just now, like Ernest said just now, if you're good at something, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm going to say, you're good at that, I'm going to let you do it. Just don't forget that Ming Yue is doing something else also. Alright, so make sure that it gels. So I served as the glue. So in terms of getting money for projects, it will always be difficult. It's very interesting for me now, because when I went to advertising, then it was a case of the money was there, you just have to convince them to give it to you instead of X or Y or Z, right? So you have to go in with a value proposition of a service, of a consultation, of why a video strategy A would work better than B, and I would go in with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, also I can do what you want. Alright, and that's how I got money in when I was in advertising. And now, so I'm introduced as CEO of Iron Hill Media. We are running like a studio. Imagine people like Sony Pictures and all that, but we don't have their money. Right? So we seek content, we develop, we finance, we acquire, then we sell. That's my bread and butter. That's what I'm good at. That's what I love doing. I love working with different creatives, creating new stories from scratch, and then taking it from zero to hero. So I would say humbly, that's my superpower. So I've stuck with that. Now I've got some partners and investors that believe that in my ability to do that, and have given me some money to start this company. And I'm working with all kinds of directors and all that. So it's interesting. So to answer the question, I managed to get some money from investors to now work with people to try and get more money, right? And now I'm very different from talking to people like Nestle and all that. Now I'm talking to people like HBO Asia and Netflix and iFlix and View, and I'm also going beyond that. I went to my first big film market with actual products in my pocket last year in December, the ATF, in conjunction with the Asian TV Forum that's held in conjunction with the Singapore International Film Festival, and I met with Hook, MediaCorp Singapore, HBO, and to get money from them. What was cool, it goes back to my first point, answering Matt's first question. They didn't care that I don't have any background, that I've never made any international, global selling television show. They just cared about what was in my pocket and whether it was good. So I had 5 concepts of ideas, fully decked out. They are almost full-length pitch production, Bible level, HBO standard templates, international standard templates that I had ready, created in 7 months. Move fast, right? You have to move fast when you don't have resources. So in 7 months, me and a few guys just put everything together and then tried to sell it. But this is the long form game, they call it. So money is long way away, right? So then the strategy is how do you remain sustainable while I'm developing all these shows and all these movies and all these TV series before I can get a sale. Then there's a whole other ball of yarn after that, beyond that discussion. So if you imagine something like Ghost Bride, any of you watch the Ghost Bride Netflix? Cool, right? Some of you may like it, some of you may not like it. That's another question. But essentially, something like that, imagine, right, the process of the original studio that bought the rights to the book. And then they had teams of development writers, directors, producers who continuously work on several versions of it before it finally got greenlit. If you read all these press releases and all that, everyone keeps saying, it took us 1 year to make it, right? Easily, it took 4 years before that to get to that 1 year to make it. So that's the kind of struggles you have to go through to get money.
Well, it's grueling, man.
It's absolutely great. Okay, now we only have time for a couple more questions, but I know that a lot of you guys actually have your own businesses. You're wondering how do I leverage off of whatever platform to engage the current market, right? To engage the current audiences. Any questions from the floor before we do one last final round? Any questions from the floor at all? Something pertaining to what you're doing right now? No? Not at all? Okay, so the last one question, I'm just going to run you through. What do you think? What's the one thing that, if there's one thing that brands must do when they're producing content, what's that one thing for you? Oh, of course, there's many things. I want budget, this, that, talent, this, lighting. But what's the one thing to you that's most important that a lot of brands actually overlook in each of your individual industries? Because you guys have like tons of experience between you, like different media, different forms at different times. So, Michael, for you, what's the one thing that brands should be looking into which are not?
If I had to succinctly say what's the one thing you need to think about, regardless of your big P&G or a small SME brand and company, I think it's the big picture. I believe the current way people are doing things is not really sustainable. All these big Chinese New Year ads, and then you're trying to one-up each other and all that, right? It's not sustainable. I don't think you, as a brand, should think about every year I need to come out with a Chinese New Year ad that's better than Petronas one, right? Then it's a case of whether you got enough money and all that. Sometimes some of the best channels that I followed ever since 2012 and 13, they do the most boring videos, but it's extremely functional and specific to their target demographic. So I remember, just a quick example, any of you know the brand Shure, S-H-U-R-E? Right? One or two, right? They sell audio equipment. That's basically not exactly very sexy, right? So for them to come out with big, make you cry videos doesn't make sense. So what they end up doing is that they just do testimonial videos, DIY videos, review videos, and that's all they did, right? For many years. When I first went to their channel, they only had like 2,000-3,000 subscriber base. In less than a year, 2013, 2014, they had 8,000, 10,000, 15,000 subscribers. Just boom. And I just saw their upload rate increase of the same type of content. That's all. That's all they did. And I believe that they upped their content because they had more money, because they had more sales, right? So they didn't need the big hero videos. So they had a big picture in mind, right? What kind of content works for me? And based on that big picture, they developed influencers to work with. Different influencers were part of their channel to come out with reviews and testimonials. And then from there, they also have their own original content in terms of testimonials and reviews. Also the same, it's just different people, different approach. And yeah, the big picture, that's the one thing.
For me, I'll use a example I recently had. So, along with our production company, we also have a digital and creative consulting agency. And so I work closely with people like McDonald's, Netflix, and Estee Lauder companies. And so Estee Lauder last year wanted to sell a foundation that they have, right? And it's a beauty brand, and I'm a boy, so you know, I know a lot of beauty brands. So they want to sell this thing called the Double Wear Foundation, right? It's a foundation where it's a lot of things, 24 good things about it. And initially, the idea was to create a 5-minute film, right? Talk about all the features and benefits and how it doesn't stain, how it's human resistant. I'm just like, wow, this is crazy, right? So they said, we want this and we want this when. I was like, okay, you know what? If you all don't give me anything else, I'll work on this. And we went in for the meeting and I sat down with the boss, and the boss said, this is really good. I was like, oh, thanks. Then he turned to his own team, why are we trying to change the world with this? And I was like, that's a great question, right? And I think the misconception that people have when it comes to advertising their products through content is that they think that they have to fit everything about the product into one piece of content, right? And that is the first thing that I usually tell people when I go in for the first consulting meeting. I'll tell them, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to tell people if you only had one message? Because then, if you are unsure of what you're selling, you're not selling anything, realistically, right? And so then that's how we devise and help people figure out, okay, what's the key message here? What do we want people to take away from this 15-second, 30-second, 1-minute video? But above that, I think one thing I would challenge all of you as well is to figure out wherever you are in terms of business and product, right? Does your business or product really need a YouTube channel? Does it need a full-on video platform for you to post up videos about every other day? For example, if you are selling hand sanitizers, and then you say, okay, I'm going to make a Facebook page, I'm going to make an Instagram page, now I'm going to make a YouTube page and Twitter page. I'm like, yes, it's great, now you're TikTok also. You have all the platforms, good job, you're verified. What the smack are you putting on all these platforms? And who is making it, right? Because is it necessary? If your main product is hand sanitizers, you know people know what it is. Unless it's got some whitening effect that is new to the market, do it, let people know, but that's like 3 videos worth of it, right? What's the rest of your content going to be like? So it's crazy because I'm saying this and I want to take your money for doing this, right? But don't waste money unnecessarily on marketing things that people don't need to know. Know what you're selling, because if you don't know, please know, nobody knows as well. So that is, I think, the most important thing when it comes to brands working with content and using content. Yeah.
For me, it's usually the term that I use is humanization, because all the time we see all these big brands, and we always sort of like associate these brands with huge budgets, big companies. Wow, big entity, and I'm just a small Gucci, But the problem is what I believe brands should be aware of is to humanize themselves, to bring themselves to the level of their consumers. So when you see a brand that knows how to make fun of themselves, or you see a brand who knows how to poke fun at themselves, or maybe poke fun at their rivals, I think that works much better to engage with people, to make people resonate more and feel that, hey, he's like one of us. So that's one thing I believe that brands should try to exercise more on, to be more human, to be more, together with their audience and consumers. Instead of we are so prestigious, buy my stuff. We don't do that anymore. We just, if companies, to me, I always feel if they are able to poke fun at themselves, those are the companies that I want to follow. Simple as that.
Alright guys, I think that's all the time we have for this panel session. Thank you guys so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a huge round of applause. Michael, Review, and Ernest. Thank you so much, buddy. Thank you. So in case you guys are planning yourself brand